I thought I would make a video to articulate my thoughts because I'm not sure to whom to talk in this moment of maybe crisis, maybe madness, or maybe nothing at all. And as a surrounding circumstance, always wondering what is the value of any philosophical investigation, which of course is parallel activity to interpretation of books. Of course, you would produce books, or at least base your book on the interpretation of spontaneous notes. Try to harvest your weeds into a kind of textile. We had said again and again that sentences like, "the world is nothing," or even the question, "what is the world?" to which we could add, is it a concept or a noun worth anything at all? We had said that these sentences, which appear inane or paradoxical, like "everything is nothing," they seem to signify what I've been calling an interrogative re-evaluation. That behind the evaluations and re-evaluations and de-evaluations of nouns, call them ideas or concepts, that what one is doing is rebalancing the values allocated to these interrogative concepts or ideas, such as how many, whence, whether, why, besides the famous where and when, to which we usually have singular answers like space and time, these all-encompassing and singular nouns. And they're invoked as though they were proper nouns, although they don't really refer to a person or a name place. But it's a peculiar, all the same mode of invocation. Now, alongside a redundant summary of some of the philosophical thoughts that have been aired in this channel is a kind of crisis in the value of these thoughts. What effort would be required to investigate further, to figure out some use of these, and we're not just saying it's useful for AI or whatever. We can't just say that. We have to determine a more precise use and make progress on a particular problem using this very general framework. Now, how much effort would that take, and what sacrifices would need to be made? Obviously, for philosophical investigation, abundance of leisure is necessary. The problem with an abundance of leisure, of course, is when do you start the leisure? And could you be in a position where you have too much wealth so that you don't feel any sense of urgency that the work you produce would be necessary, that you need to generate some income from it, sell it, if you were an author, for example. The other problem with an abundance of leisure is, aren't you missing out on life? Doesn't life, which involves maybe family, doesn't that... Well, the sentence speaks for itself. But you may need to work on things or spend your time in activities that aren't leisurely, that aren't philosophical, but are what I suppose is the business of life. And maybe there's only a deep fulfillment in that. I don't know. And yeah, I think that's what I've been saying. These values allocated to interrogative concepts, certain sentences which are flashy, paradoxical, contradictory, they seem to say that other interrogative concepts like how many, or how much rather, whence, in contradistinction to the ancient what, or the modern where, when, that sentences like that, whoever says them, they seem to signify a shifting, the birth of a new mind. These sentences show a new mind arising. And why do we care about that? Well, lots of science fiction novels and physics have given us our original dreams of achieving warp drive or cold fusion. The computer science has given us the idea of resolving the P versus NP, polynomial versus non-polynomial time distinction. Maybe there really is none. Maybe big problems like factoring can be efficiently solved. Going back to physics, what about the unification of physics? Bridging the gap between the two branches, general relativity and quantum mechanics. Could those problems be solved? I don't know. Could you solve them? Not sure. So when I talk about the birth of a new mind, what I'm also referring to asking is, could you conceive of a mind that could solve those problems? And we know the benefit of solving those problems will be fairly large. So rather than directly biting on the granite, could you instead bypass the hardness of these problems themselves by just becoming that mind that could solve them? And there's also of course, theological interpretation of that thought. Maybe it's an allusion to the mind of God. I never intended that originally, but I think that interpretation also makes sense. And perhaps it's then blasphemous, because you would play God, become the mind of God, or know it. Because how dare you? So all that said, after 7 minutes, I'm not sure there's anything more to say about all of my philosophical efforts. And dramatically speaking, maybe if I die, that there's nothing further really to add. There could be 50,000 different sentences, but I don't think that any individual one is going to add or take away from what I'm saying right now. So, voila.